Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
Mr. Arthur Oken, you have heard him on here before. He's very informative. He writes great articles in Boomer Times, and he is the owner of Save On Global Meds, and I welcome you to be here.
Thank you very much.
And you have given us so much information throughout all the articles, but today I know you want to talk about migraines, and I think that migraines are absolutely one of the most important. I don't know if we call it, it's not a disease, it's a condition.
Yes, it is.
It's a condition, right?
Yes, it is.
And I know professionals, nurses, doctors, people who go and they do Botox, they do a lot of things, and they suffer. Some days they can't come to work. So tell us what you know about migraines.
Well, let me start off by saying that I am a sufferer of migraines, but unfortunately, I have been able to get rid of them. And I guess I'm going to go right to that instead of going into my articles. When I was 59, came down with Lyme disease, which had all fibromyalgia symptoms.
And ALS symptoms.
No.
But I've heard people who thought they had...
No. The Lyme disease can give you all kinds of conditions. The symptoms that I had were fibromyalgia.
I see.
Plus a few other extras.
Good.
So I was faced with a problem of having migraines, multiple headaches, tendinitis through my upper body, problems concentrating, and memory problems. And fortunately, my doctor had recommended that I try something called biofeedback. And biofeedback is also known as neurofeedback, which is it's a meditation, but it also teaches you to do self-healing. And I was able to, if I got headaches or I got migraines, I was able to go into a quiet area, and I could stop the migraine, and I could stop the headaches, as well as other pains that I was having in my body. I couldn't stop them from coming back. And then I found acupuncture. And believe it or not, I go to an acupuncturist once a year. I do for 3 visits, and I don't get a migraine for the whole year. And when I start getting the migraine back, it's usually around the same time of the year. It's around October, when the weather starts to change. That's when I see the acupuncturist. So you might want to, look into biofeedback if you're having a lot of pain problems. Cancer patients use biofeedback. In fact, I'll be writing an article, as I told you, this coming month on biofeedback.
Let me tell you right now that Sandy Simon is watching and he says, "Do you want to tag Sandy Simon in this video?" Sandy Simon has been a long friend of first my husband and then for me. And he actually is a stroke victor. He was very powerful in so many ways, and then he had one of the most devastating strokes. But he is such a Superman that he, over the last 10, 15 years, not only is he an author and did everything else, but he just about has cured himself. You would not know he has a stroke. He's listening, and he's a fantastic guy. I hope he doesn't have migraines, but...
Yeah, well... Good luck to you.
Yeah, right. I just wanted to share that with you.
In the meantime, there are medications for migraines. If you have a moderate or simple migraine occasionally, there are over-the-counter medications, Tylenol, but probably the best over-the-counter would be Advil with caffeine. That is really for migraines, and it helps. But if you are a serious migraine sufferer, the next step up is something called triptans. There's about a half a dozen different triptans out there. They're all generic, but some of them work fast, some of them work slower. The advantage of the slower working triptans are that they will keep your migraine away a longer time than the fast working triptans. Of course, there are problems with triptans, and unfortunately, if you have a heart condition or you have other similar type I'm just going to refer to my own notes. If you are taking beta blockers, or you're taking not beta blockers, but if you take, particularly if you have heart conditions. I started with the migraines. I was taking Imitrex before it became generic, and my doctor says, "Oh no, you can't take that." So there are side effects, problems with triptans, which means that there is one other kind of a medication. It's called an ergot, and the ergots work slower than the triptans, but they do not affect and don't have the side effects of the triptans. And the one that's available is
Well, one thing I want everyone, I know you're listening, but Arthur is not a physician. What he is, he's in a very unusual business. And that is really, not only is he just smart, but he's also, in his former life, he was in research, but he really does know so much. Maybe just divert for 1 second and explain to everybody what Save On Medical.
I am a telephone center for a New Zealand pharmacy, which means that we can order medications from overseas at a tremendous discount versus what you're paying for the Tier 3, Tier 4 not covered medications, or the medications that have high copays and are going to put you into the donut hole. The bulk of our customers are seniors. We advertise towards seniors. Obviously, that's what the Boomer Times and Senior Times is. And our bulk of our business are seniors. We have lovely people who are in their hundreds, God bless them, who order from us. And
whom you talk to also, which is interesting when you're in your office. Someone has a question, Arthur's right there. He'll talk to anybody.
Well, I have other people in the office also. They're all knowledgeable. I have a very close relationship with a bunch of my older customers. It was funny. I had mentioned to this one lady who I knew was well into her years that I was celebrating my 80th birthday in March, and she said, "Me too." She says, "Only I'm going to be 105."
Oh, no kidding.
And she has been a customer of ours for 5 years.
Now, that is a wonderful testimonial.
Yes.
You ought to probably put that in your article. I think that's a great testimonial.
So the ergot that I was talking about, by the way, we sell all of these products, is called Cambia. You might want to talk to a doctor to see if he recognizes it or if he thinks it's something that you could take. We also sell the triptans as a nasal spray, and that's something that's not covered well by your insurance. So we have quite a number of people who take the triptans with nasal sprays because it works even faster.
Well, Arthur, one thing I want people to know, that if they're not 60 or a senior, they can still buy from you.
Oh, of course. I just had someone, what happens is a senior, his daughter was trying to get pregnant, and we sold her all of her medications that she needed to become fertile for a transplant, for an embryo transplant.
And we have another viewer, Edward Myers, who is an author. He's a fabulous guy. I haven't heard from him for a while, but he's also listening to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, there are medications that are
and now Seth Levy is watching. Sorry.
Okay,
it's
no
like
problem.
you're on television. You're Facebook Live. We'll do it every time.
Now, if you are a serious migraine sufferer, you may already know about it, but there are medications that you could take to help prevent migraines. Mostly, the FDA has approved beta blockers and anti-seizure medications for trying to prevent migraines, and they are approved for migraines, so doctors can write prescriptions for it. The beta blockers are things like Indirel, metoprolol which is Lopressor, Timolol, and if you're looking at anti-seizure, medications. It's something like Topomax and Depakote. I have to be honest with you, it doesn't necessarily always work. I tried the Depakote, and it didn't help. But, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't try it. I just found out that a new medication has just been approved by the FDA as a preventative for migraines. Unfortunately, just so you know, it's going to be something like an EpiPen, but the price is they believe is going to run somewhere between $7,000 to $10,000 a year.
Oh, just some chunk change, right?
Hey, that's our drug companies when they come out with new products.
Oh my heavens!
So it's not available to me, so I can't help you bring down the price. But in fact, I noticed none of the insurance companies have even got it listed. It's so new. And
we have another person that just came on. His name is Henry Kay. I know him as an attorney. This is great. You have a lot of people listening to you, so shine on, Arthur Oken.
Well, again, when you're dealing with the preventative medications, some doctors have also tried tricyclite antidepressants to reduce the frequency, and that would be something like Elavil, or it's said to be the only antidepressant that seems effective to prevent migraines. Some other of the antidepressants are tried, but keep in mind the anti-seizure medications, they also have side effects, as do hypertension medications.
Well, let me ask you something. I know when people are getting migraines, they go into a dark room with quiet. Did you ever have to do that?
Yes, but the problem with a migraine, and it could vary all over, is a lot of people they may have a pain in their eye. It could be in their head. I actually had it behind my ear. It started off behind my ear, and then it would travel forward to my eye. Other people get auras. They hear sounds, and they can start spinning. It's the migraines when they're serious. You want to go into a dark room to try to get away from light. But there are medications that you can take. There is a controlled substance item called Furosect, and I know my daughter takes it, and she says it works. But I just had a couple of people calling me, telling me that the doctors are having trouble writing prescriptions for the Furosect, so it may be on a recall. I don't know. If you're on Furosect, I suggest you talk to your doctor, see if he can get access to it. Because my daughter was devastated when she couldn't get it, and I've had a couple of people calling me and asking me if we can get Furosect. Unfortunately, we can't handle controlled items. We're not allowed to handle them at all.
Oh, but has that always been true since you've been in business, or is this something new now?
Controlled items? No, never. People say, well, you sell opioids. No, I don't. I don't sell controlled items. But there's an awful lot of products that are, I couldn't believe it. Lyrica used to be a regular non-controlled. Now it's a controlled because it turns out that once you start Lyrica, you seem to have to stay on it. And then the FDA says, well, if you have to stay on it, then it becomes a controlled item.
Really?
Yeah, so I get a ton of calls on Lyrica. Unfortunately, I can't get it.
Do you agree with that?
No, not at all. Lyrica is a godsend for an awful lot of people who have nerve pains, and also it helps some people with fibromyalgia. It's supposed to be for fibromyalgia.
Well, that's very sad. But of course, the one thing that I love about you is that many things, but one specific thing is that people who have to pay enormous amounts if they just go to their local pharmacy can now do this through you. And something that you have to make very clear as that where you get your medications from. It's people say, oh, well, they're not getting them from the United States. How do I know if they're good?
Well, keep in mind, if we're handling branded, for example, we get certain products from New Zealand, the UK, from Australia. Other ones we get from Turkey. It seems that brand manufacturers, almost every single one of them has a plant in Turkey because most of Europe is on price controls. And because they're on price controls, they needed to find a place where they can make the medications inexpensively, which means building an inexpensive plant that wouldn't cost them so much. It's the economics of working out of Turkey versus the United States, where they can make a profit. When you have controls, price controls, you can say to the manufacturer, if you don't bring down your price, we'll use your competitor. And so that's what happens. They have to bring down their prices. The advantage that we have is that we're buying the identical product from overseas at the reduced price. Here in the United States, we have no price controls over the drug manufacturers. It turns out when they passed the Medicare drug plan, they specifically said Medicare cannot negotiate prices.
Which is terrible. It's absolutely terrible.
You have to write your congressman, you have to write your senators, and you tell them you want Medicare to be able to bargain, to be able to bring down the prices.
So I'm sure people who don't really know you and maybe haven't experienced what you do already are saying, well, how can you be sure if it's made in Turkey that it's
Well, let's
good?
Put it this way. GlaxoSmithKline and Novartis and all those other companies, when they put out a product, wherever they sell it, it has to be the same patented product. They can't afford to deviate from the patent. So in the particular case where it's made in Turkey, the European Union's equivalent of the FDA has approved the drug manufacturers who are making the products in Turkey to sell the identical product in Europe. So I've done a lot of research, so I can answer that. The other one is that we also have access to generics that are available in Europe that aren't necessarily available here in the U.S. because there's a long patent law in the U.S. It takes about 14 years or 20 years before a product can be moved forward. And the drug manufacturers all of a sudden will come out with a new version of the product. They came out with Seroquel, and when Seroquel was almost at the end of its patent, they came out with Seroquel XL so that they could extend the life. Now that you're getting inhalers that are going to be going off patent, they came out with Respimats instead of a pump that you're used to using as an inhaler. You now have some called a Respimat, where you put it in your mouth and you twist it. That way, they can keep their patent going. And it's also difficult for the generic manufacturers to come up with a patented idea, so they have to come up with a me too that doesn't necessarily work. We have a generic for Advair, and one manufacturer puts it out with as a regular pump, similar to it's like a disc, and you pump it. But another manufacturer has it where it works more like where you have to break the caplet and then inhale it. And I don't want to sell that to anyone.
Oh.
I want to be able to sell it. Now, the interesting thing is that branded medications don't necessarily have the same name that they do here in the United States. I was just talking about Advair, and unbelievable or not, in Europe and overseas, it's called Seretide. So we tell our customers that if you're concerned, Google it, and you will see that Advair and Seretide are the identical product made by GlaxoSmithKline.
Well, you're a godsend to the people here who deal with you. And I just want to give some information out. If you're listening, and some of the people on our Facebook, Arthur Oken is our guest, and he is the owner of Save On Global Meds. And the way that you can talk to him is just get on his website, Save On, that's SAVON, globalmeds.com. SAVON globalmeds.com. And it's really, it's been a godsend, actually.
And also, call me, even make it faster.
Okay. And the number is 561-432-3294.
And if you're out of local, then we have an 800 number.
Oh, okay. Well, the 800 number, if we give too many numbers, everyone can use can't they?
We have a lot of people who are snowbirds, and you can try the 561. That'll make it easy.
Yeah, let's do the 561. I don't actually have the 800 here. I have to go in my magazine, but let me just give the 561, and that's 432-3294, and I can give the 800 after. Why don't you just continue, though, because you give so much information. Now, how did you find the New Zealand company? How did that happen?
Well, when I went on to Medicare and I had insurance, I was still finding out that the insurance wasn't covering a lot of the high tier medications. It was costing me a fortune. It was costing me, just unbelievable. My copays were unbelievable. So I had heard about the Canadian pharmacies, and I looked into CanadaDrugs.com, which is like the leading one in Canada. And there are a bunch of others, but CanadaDrugs.com is the leading one in Canada. And by the way, why I mention it, I can beat most of their prices.
Because you go to New Zealand.
New Zealand gave me a much better pricing. I did find a Canadian company that I would be affiliated with. I try to help people in my community. I advertised that I would help you, save money. It became so complex for me that they were asking me to do everything, and so I decided to go into business.
Right.
I found a Canadian company. They were charging me too much money. I then found this New Zealand company who was looking for affiliates. It's strange. What happened was about 3-4 years ago, the drug lobby saw to it that you couldn't use credit cards.
That's what happened.
If you were ordering from a company like ours in the United States, and I don't know if all you local people in Broward and Palm Beach County, you probably remember there were storefronts all over the place selling Canadian drugs.
I do.
They all folded because they were tied in with credit cards.
And you see, and what you're smart is that you take people's checks, and that's allowed.
Yes.
Maybe someone has a cash, but most of it's checks.
Few people bring in cash.
But you do checks, and you've always bragged that rarely are you ever hurt.
I have to be honest. I've had 2 bad checks in the 5 years. Yes, and I don't want to get into that.
No, but it's very important to know that
the senior community. I find the senior community is much more responsible than the non-seniors, and they also want to be able to get the medication.
And actually, credit cards, a lot of times, because we take credit cards for our business, a lot of times they're declined, and we have to go back out after that too. So credit cards aren't the best thing.
Well, the other thing with the credit cards is that it's costing 5 to 6%, which cuts in because we want to keep our prices down.
Right.
So we do take checks. It may add a day or two to the. It takes anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks for the product to arrive from the time we get everything from our client. There does a lot of traveling, and like for some products are made, let's say, in Turkey, but they're being filled in an island in the Indian Ocean called Mauritius.
Right.
And keep in mind, we use a New Zealand pharmacy, so to them, Mauritius is not that far away. And
they have beautiful women in Mauritius. Do you know that?
And the reason that they're using Mauritius is that the pharmacy doesn't charge that much.
I see.
And that way we keep the prices down even more. We do get a lot of products from New Zealand, as I said, because we do use a New Zealand pharmacy. But we're able to, there are times we can get products down 30, 40, 50, even 80% below what people are paying.
So people have to know you are not a pharmacy. And there's a commercial that says, not a pharmacy. You actually are what would you term? What's one word?
We're a call center
A
for a
call
pharmacy.
center. But
Well, New Zealand is actually 16 hours ahead of us. It's they haven't opened. It's actually Thursday there right now, and they'll be opening up in 2 hours.
but how do you deal with them? You do it over email?
We do a lot of emails, and they get back to me. From 3 o'clock on, we can reach them, and they get back to us. And they do. I've got to be honest with you. They do a marvelous job. One of the things that
You understand their language? I mean, you understand their accents?
It's easy. Sometimes I find the English harder to understand.
Okay.
One of the things is that we send you an order form and we ask for medications that you're using. That's for our pharmacy to make sure that there's no conflicts. So they get back to us and say, hey, they shouldn't be using this medication with this medication. Have them tell their doctor.
Okay. Well, I do have the 800 number now, and I'm going to give it to you. It's an 888-980-8564. I'll repeat that, 888-980-8564. And if you get Boomer Times, you'll see a wonderful page with all the various, that's not all they have, that's just a small amount, but you'll at least get a feeling of their most popular drugs. And then, of course, Arthur always writes a very informative article on the other page. So be sure that you know Save On Global Meds. Very, very good company. Thank you, Arthur.
I appreciate it. I've always loved to come here.
And I always love to have you. And we have a lot of guests today, so we're going to get you off now.
Thank you.